So if you're tuning into this video, I am going to assume that you heard the boo-boo that head coach Neal Brown made at his weekly Monday press conference from the Milan Puskar Center. And I got to get a chance to weigh in here. I feel as if this story, taking up, sucking up all of the oxygen of the last now 72 hours as it pertains to this West Virginia University football program. I thought about making this video Monday night. Then, Monday night or into Tuesday, Pat McAfee's talking about it on his daily program. Later that night, the news story gets picked up later that afternoon, rather, Barstool Sports picks up the news story. Then it makes its way to ESPN.com. Now today, it's talked about by Around the Horn on a segment, Pardon the Interruption. This just gets worse and worse and worse, I feel like, by the hour. Because what it ultimately is, it gives off not only the regional, but now national perception, one that West Virginia can very much ill afford to have, is that it's not being taken as a serious football program. If there's anything worse than outrage, and for most of my life, or a good chunk of it, being a Pittsburgh Pirates fan, you can deal with outrage and still move on and still move forward. It's when it becomes apathy and you're not taken seriously that's whenever, if you have serious folks at the top administrative level, that changes are eventually made. That just cannot exist. And in today's world of college football, that cannot happen because of its downstream effects, especially given that where this program has been over the last 6 years. One of 4 programs in all of FBS to not be ranked in the Associated Press poll for 6 years, joining just Vanderbilt, Rutgers, and Texas Tech. It's been a lot. And what I think is even more perplexing, and why I even want to take it upon myself, because I feel like, I've had a message brewing up here over the last couple of days, but it's really taken to some of the things that I've heard from the West Virginia media, that there is a disconnect. There's clearly a disconnect between Neal Brown, the people that were there within that room, and then the fan base. And, as someone who is a fan and someone I feel like I speak to the fans, you who decide to tune in and listen to what I have to say, that I don't know whether at this point to just be any more enraged, or it's just I'm just at this point where I'm done. Whenever I've heard this the first segment on Monday, just my hands, I was throwing them up like the gif from Sheldon Cooper from Big Bang Theory, just in an absolute disgust. And unless the powers that be, who are the big money donors, and Ren Baker and Gordon Gee with what's left of his 8 months as president of West Virginia University, don't decide to I think when things like this happen, things happen. Now, I thought a couple of years ago in 2022 that things were happening behind the scenes to be able to find a right fit coach at that point in time in 2022. Obviously, that didn't happen. We know what's happened with the university over the last, 12, 14 months or so, with the news about the deficit and cutting of academic programs and yada, yada, yada. But what I want to focus on for this video, now almost 5 minutes into it, is just the tone deafness, or just not understanding by West Virginia's media figures, but also Neal Brown, because it came away from these comments that they're just not getting it. And it all comes back to, unfortunately, the almighty dollar, which I talk to on this program all the time, is that it is such a personal investment now to be a college football fan. I mean, the comments by Greg Hunter on West Virginia Metro News, or this article on this bluegoldnews.com by Kevin Kinder, like, are so just like tone deaf, and you live in this outside reality where you don't pay $165 a ticket to attend the Backyard Brawl to witness that kind of a loss. You don't pay to do the travel to Maryland in 2021 to suffer through that loss. It's the tone, affect, delivery by Neal Brown that fans just can't take seriously anymore. And I think this is something that's evolved over time, and I kind of want to go through that for this program, is I do think in 2019 when Neal Brown took this job that he had all of the vigor, he had all of the passion, he had all of the motivation to make his mark, doing it his way, mind you, at West Virginia. And it's eroded now to the point where after hearing these comments, I can only think of one of two things. He's either on the side of, well, they didn't fire me in 2022. I did what I did last year, and I got an extra year's worth. There's a $12 million buyout, so they won't fire me. I can say whatever I want. Or it's he knows what's coming, and he's checked out. And again, you listen to what he has to say, and even, I'm just saying, the tone involved around the way that he delivered the message, in addition to the words itself, all the people that try and justify what he said and understand the meaning, you just can't say that. Period. Like, and like, that's the thing, is like, whenever he was so different from Dana Holgorsen that you appreciated his more like business-like, buttoned up, more stoic than rather just this rough, kind of guy who coughed all the time whenever he would give these press conferences. And he does. In the early days of his press conferences, what he spoke about on the feet, the way he analyzed the organization, the things that he dealt with, off the field and everything, was all that value-added context that all of these media members are saying, and they appreciate about Neal Brown going to the nth degree to try and explain things so that they can create content for us as fans to consume. I think those were Brad Howell's direct words right there. But the thing is, when you complain about how much, not complain, but it's like you want to continuously acknowledge the demands and stress that's put on the staff because of the recruiting calendar and schedule, and then the opponents that you're playing in future conference scheduling, to blame officials. And here's what I'll say is he says, it's so funny. It's almost like he dug his own grave before he was making these comments, because now I'm being able to put all the pieces together. Him being in his own bubble, not being on social media, being away from his family, sounds as if he takes almost the Sean McVay approach of camping out in his office or something like that during the season. That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing, because anybody who has really tried to achieve or strain at their job, you can get caught up and manifest in the moment feelings. Something I always live by, and why I do my shows on Sundays and not Saturdays, is it's never worse in the moment than you actually think it is. And that's Socrates with that. But what I mean by that is sometimes that things get the better of you, and we're all human, and I understand that, and Neal Brown's human in this situation. But when you live it day in and day out, you get in your own bubble, and right now I know that the criticism is eating at him, because what he talked about, I think prior to in this press conference, before he said what he said about we're just here to have fun and the kids played hard, is that he like being away from his family, and they have to deal with the criticism. So Jordan Leslie like deactivated his Twitter after the Backyard Brawl in week 2. I am sure that the social media criticism, what Neal Brown and Jordan Leslie's wife see on Facebook or Twitter, or dirty looks that they may have perceived to receive in Kroger, or just something like, something that, like, that is what you live with, unfortunately, being a public figure. More money, more problems. If you make $4 million a year, you are a head football coach. People would kill to be a Division I Power 4 head football coach. Dream job by all imagines. You have to, unfortunately, live with the cards that you're dealt. And yes, you have to work in today's world of 24/7 recruiting. You have to, work 51 weeks a year. You have to deal, unfortunately, with, he's saying, he shows up for a few minutes to his son's flag football game, and that's about as much of a public appearance that he makes during the season. Like, that sucks, the work-life balance. Like, don't get me wrong, I truly, it does. But if you don't want to do it, then you don't sign up for it. And I think that's what, over time, it has worn on Neal Brown. I truly do. I think 2020 set it all off with COVID and the Kerry Martin situation with Vic Kenning and having to fire him, and then going to Jordan Leslie and feeling, then the Jamal Adai situation, and he takes his best players off his team while Neal Brown's trying to establish a completely different culture from Dana Holgorsen. And when that happens, like, a lot of the people who were on the roster at that point in time said, I didn't sign up for this. And that's when it came, unfortunately, at the exact wrong time with NIL and the transfer portal coming on, and Country Roads Trust was behind. And because of Shane Lyons and not opening up the doorways and pathways, the arm's length, he always said, relationship that WVU Athletics had with Country Roads Trust. So having to navigate that, having to navigate a locker room that he's admitted had some bad eggs in it, of guys who just either for one reason or another didn't buy in or were me-first players, all the way up till it seemed about last year. And now, just all of the, the losses piling up of his record against ranked opponents. I'm sure that the passion that he had from 2019 has very much waned to the point of he just sees this as a job. And unfortunately, D1 power football head coaching is not for people who see it as a job. Eat, sleep. You'd think like Dan Lanning at Oregon, or Steve Sarkisian at Texas, or Kirby Smart at Georgia. Like, absolutely not. Like, I'm sorry that you don't get to live the same kind of life of 9 to 5 or later, go home, see the wife and kids, and and not hear criticism because of what Sally Sue said down the street on Facebook, or, hey, some kid at school might have said something nasty to, one of his kids, or saying my parents think your dad's going to get fired or something like that. That's unfortunately the world that we live in because of social media, namely in 2024. So whenever you see something as a job, and that is what comes out, not only in his spoken words, if you parcel through what he's saying, like these guys clearly, did and didn't to a certain point, but it's also his just stoic, run-of-the-mill, going through the motions. Oh, it's a Monday, I gotta do this press conference. Yeah, we lost. Like, no. I mean, I can write a really nice and deliver it to you here on this video of what I think he should have said. And I think guys on some other YouTube or other podcasts out there have done a really good job, I feel like, in orating what Neal Brown should have said. But at the end of the day, we don't want to hear it because because we care about the outcome. It's a results-based business. So I don't even need to hear anything from Neal Brown. But when I do, don't do that and embarrass me as a fan even further. You think I haven't heard it enough from Pitt fans? Like throughout September, but even now, saying that this is so great. This feels like Christmas Day, that West Virginia is in shambles. And then you have the audacity, I'm going here on WVU Sports right now, section 214, way up high. The tickets for this game on Saturday are still $85 plus $5 in service fees. So that is what these people who, Neal Brown, living a job, people who are in the West Virginia media, doing their job. This is just like work for them. They don't have. I mean, I'm not gonna, like a guy like Tony Caridi, who I do know personally, have interacted with him in previous jobs. I'm not going to go out there and criticize him because I know how hard he works. He's one of the best in the business, and a really good guy whenever you get to know him and those kinds of things. I'm not going there. I'm just saying, like, when I hear Greg Hunter's comments or others that I read, and it's like you have not paid you get a free press box ticket or media credential or whatever to have access onto the field. Do you pay for a Country Roads Trust membership? Do you pay $40 or more to park for every single game? Do you, food and drink is provided to you in the press box as a media member? Do you pay for, a gas, I guess, is arbitrary because everybody's paying it these days. But you get where I'm going with this, is adding up, it's like people are making decisions on, do they go on a summer vacation, or do they invest in invest in a season ticket or mini package with today's economy? WVU, as I mentioned in my listen to my series about the WVU game day experience being the second most expensive game day experience by this sports or Oddspedia's study in this in the country. So when it just almost like a spit in the face to a certain extent of like, I don't care about how much you care, so what are you going to do about it? And like, again, as I said on my recap video of Iowa State, is that like we as West Virginia fans don't have this expectations that Georgia or Ohio State or Texas does. It's compete with your rivals like Pitt, Maryland, Virginia Tech. When the stars align from a roster standpoint, like it did on August 31st of contending for a Big 12 championship, do it. Go out there and play competitive against a Penn State, at least, until it, like West Virginia did in 2014 against Alabama. Beat your rival in Pitt. Be competitive in Big 12 conference play, and that's like very few programs I feel like would have given the leash long enough for Neal Brown to get to the point in which he has 6 years in. When programs like Army, Navy, BYU, Arizona State, Indy freaking Anna, SMU are all doing it, are all like right in there in the national conversation. So where I feel like it's going from there, because I feel for you all as fans, myself included, that we are stuck and have to suffer in a situation of Neal Brown being the head coach. Because, and as I said on the Iowa State game, what really does he individually bring to this program that you can't find elsewhere? I found it very interesting late last night that a guy in Anthony Becht goes and tweets this very cryptic gif that says something's brewing, And then I refresh Twitter and I see an article posted by 247 Sports, Mike Kazaza, that says Anthony Becht wants to get in as a head coach in college. And I'm like, connecting some dots. Was there some like basement of, what is it, that hotel or something where all the coaches drink in Morgantown? Like, I guess Holgerson and Huggins were there all the time. There's like some special secret bar or something down there on the waterfront. Was there a meeting arranged between Anthony Becht over this past weekend and Ren Baker and some of the boosters? And, you know, because he's got a vote of confidence, I'm sure, from his former head coach, Don Nehlen. And I know he's still at 88 years old, but, like, he's one of the main reasons West Virginia got into the Big 12 conference. So his voice carries weight. So it's like, if West Virginia has been preparing to secure the bag, to buy out Neal Brown's contract, and I saw, I forget when I looked this up just recently, how much that he was making. It was somewhere like in the like 300,000s, I feel like, or something, as the head coach of the St. Louis Battlehawks of the USFL or XFL, whatever it is, these USL, I don't know. I don't really watch that. But like, if he was paid $3 million, 10 times the amount of what he was making at the USFL or whatever it is, less than what Neal Brown is making, as I've chronicled in other videos, Neal Brown not being paid like a top 40 head coach in college football. I don't even think like it's right around like the 50s. You're paying Anthony Becht maybe less. Who all could he potentially bring into the program? I'm just speculating. I think that there are some other coaches. I really like Jamie Chadwell down at Liberty. It's really like two that I feel like Andy Kotelnicki at Penn State, just proving he's just maybe the best offensive coordinator in college football right now. I really like Jawan Sider also at Penn State, former player. Has ties to the program and the coaching staff. I think maybe at first under Bill Stewart, but also under Dana Holgerson. So like there's options. That's what I mean to say is like it's all about money at this point in time, because it's insanity. Hitting your head against the wall and expecting different results other than pain. That we kind of know what he is at this point in time. Don't see it getting seismically better. Now West Virginia just lost one of its best recruits of the 2025 class in Montaven Quisenberry, going back on his commitment and choosing Kentucky instead. So it's just like, I don't want to see, I said in the recap video against Iowa State, I don't want to see West Virginia roster standpoint get just totally decimated like the basketball roster did when Bob Huggins got fired. But at some point, you got to draw your line in the sand, say enough is enough, and move on. So if that's the case, and he has this defeated attitude, like that, it's becoming more and more like Dana Holgerson each and every day, each and every week with Neal Brown. You feeling almost as if like you can't win at West Virginia, and that's just a defeatist attitude that I cannot accept. Period. I cannot defend, and I can't. People who can strike that argument down real quick. So I think either way, maybe even as a punishment, make him go and coach the Arizona game. So then they have to go all the way to Tucson and come all the way back, and then he can get the pink slip at that point in time. I don't know. Still seeing how Saturday goes, but I'm going to be very, very curious to hear what he has to say on his radio show tomorrow night from Kegler's. Does he double down? Does he double down on, what he said and like try and make it out as like not a big deal, or like it was taken out of context of what I was really trying to say? I just don't want to hear that at this point. He cannot say anything affirmatively to me that like I can really buy. Maybe it's just the way he talks and but I just don't hear any sort of passion from him at this point in time that makes him sound believable. Like it's just kind of empty words. So I don't know if that's the way you feel. But I just feel as if, like, when you're in a relationship, or, see, if you hear like this movie, I forget which movie it is, Hitch maybe, it's like 90-10. If you got to get 10% from the other person when you go in 90. Like, at this point in time, it's so heavily weighted toward the fans and the investment that they bring in for this football program and what we're trying to get behind and financially support, that you can't have anybody who's not in alignment. And right now, I'm really questioning that about Neal Brown and what he brings to the table. And does he know that he's getting canned, or does he not care at that point in time? Because to make statements like that, you just live in an alternate universe outside of the realm of what normal, everyday 9-to-5 working people, or 9-to-5 or more working people do, what investment they're putting into this program. And to just say, like, I hope you had fun and the weather's nice and all this ancillary stuff. Like, if I wanted to spend the kind of money that I spend on West Virginia football tickets, I'd go to Cedar Point. I'd go play golf. I might go to a concert. But instead, I suffer through week in and week out, it seems like, losing to teams like Pitt, losing to teams like Penn State in the fashion in which West Virginia lost, or rinse, repeat, and losing to a ranked opponent in Iowa State. And it's because I love West Virginia, and I want to see them succeed. Unfortunately, I think someone like me wants to see them succeed more than the head coach does. Love to know your thoughts. Please leave your comments here on YouTube. Please like this so more Mountaineer fans can see it across YouTube. I'd love to have you a subscriber too. I'm going to go and record now my preview video for Saturday's game against Kansas State. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog. I do this each and every week and have a lot of fun doing it. And thanks for tuning in. Let's go. Hoping for better days ahead. Hail West Virginia.